everybody. This is Adam King. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Glory Road teaching. Today we're going to continue our series on what it means to work. I know everybody's thinking, well, I know what work is, a 9-to-5 job, something you get paid, probably paid not what you're worth, but you got to get paid a certain amount so you can go pay the bills, and buy the food, take care of the family, and so forth. But really, was that the concept in God's mind when He created us and sent us here? Is that, you just get a job, He put a certain skill in you, and you just go work that job for 30, 40 years, retire, and then wait till you die, and then go back to heaven, and that was God's plan? No, it wasn't His plan. But that's the plan we have worked, and that's what we've become a master at doing. And we pass down from generation to generation that concept. And really, it's not doing what God put in us to do, or we're not becoming the potential that He put on the inside of us. Now, the word work is a Hebrew word that means, the word is ergon, and it means to become. It means to fulfill, to reveal, to manifest, to become oneself. See, it's the same thing that we experience whenever you put an apple seed in the ground. You're basically saying to the apple seed, work, or become, manifest, reveal the life on the outside that you have on the inside. And you know as well as I do that an apple seed will not produce an orange tree. Why? It doesn't have that kind of life on the inside. But everything that apple seed is going to produce is on the inside of the apple seed. So God created everything that way. So even with us, the very life that we are to manifest on the outside is already on the inside. So God says the problem that we've had in humanity is we've lived exterior all the time. Exterior living is our defeat. We live by our 5 physical senses. We live by the things we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch instead of knowing who we really are and drawing on the potential that's on the inside of us where the life really is. So we need to find out what it means to work. And so let's go over here to Philippians chapter 2. And let's take a look at verse 12 and 13. It says, "Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation." Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do of His good pleasure. Now notice he says you and I are to work out our own salvation. Now he's telling us what we are to work out. Salvation. So the work that you and I are to do is to produce salvation, or a life that saves. A power, a life, a glory that saves. We work it out. Now, we find this also, the same concept in Romans 10, 9 and 10, where the Bible talks about if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, that you shall be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. See, you believe in your heart, but your confession is made with your words, with your confession. So this is how you and I are to work. Now we work with our hands, but God said work with your tongue. Work with your words. See, what we got it backwards. We want to work with our hands so we can put food in our mouth. God said out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth will speak. We kind of got it backwards. We want to feed our belly with food from the outside coming from our hands instead of taking the spiritual food, the bread of life on the inside, and then releasing it out of the mouth and providing salvation for everybody else. And then you can feed the hunger or feed the hungry. And they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, you could be the one to feed them and work. Now, the kind of work that the work of Christ on the inside produces is the same kind of life and work that Jesus revealed when He walked on the water, when he spoke to the wind and the sea and it obeyed him, when he raised Lazarus from the dead, when he multiplied the fish and the bread, when he opened up the eyes of blind Bartimaeus, when he talked to Zacchaeus and he gave unto him wisdom and spiritual understanding, whenever he spoke the mind of God, whenever he forgave sins, whenever he raised up the lepers, whenever he did these things, opened up blind eyes, when he did all this, this was heaven at work. It was the life on the inside of him at work. Now let's go over there to the Gospel of John. John chapter 14. Let's go there. John chapter 14. Now let's take a look at this because you want to see your potential here. You want to see what you are capable of doing. John chapter 14, we'll start reading. Let's go verse 10. It said, "Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me?" Now in John 15:7 it says, "If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you will, it shall be done." This is the same concept that Jesus is revealing that he walked out when the Father was in him and his word was in him. When Jesus was abiding in the Father and the Father's word was in him. Then he says, "The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works." So just like Jesus said in John 15:7, if you abide in me, just like Jesus was abiding in the Father, and his word abides in you, and just like Jesus, the Father's word would abide in Jesus, then you would be able to say, and whatever you say will happen. The same way when Jesus followed that process, he spoke to the fig tree and the fig tree would obey him. See, it's the same law working in us that worked in him. We're the ones that put the division between that law working in us and the law working in Jesus, because we say he's the Son of God and we're just a mere man. We can't do much. We're sinners. We're saved by grace, but we're still sinners. And the law of the Spirit of life doesn't work in a sinner. It only works in the righteous. And that's why Jesus said he took our sin and he made us the righteousness of God so that we could walk in that kind of authority and that kind of life. So that when we would speak, the Father on the inside, the source power, would begin to confirm the word with signs following. So let's read verse 11 of John chapter 14. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake or for the word's sake. Word is the way we work. Speak and it shall be done. You over in Genesis, God spoke and he said, "Light be," light was. He said all those things with his word. And then in Genesis chapter 2, we find out that on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had made. And so he ended his work. And what was his work? He said. And this is the way he created man to operate the same way he did, is when we believe in our heart, confess with our mouth, we'll have what we say. He made us a speaking spirit just like him with the same capability. Now the word that we speak should be his word. And when I say his word, I'm not talking about chapter and verse. I'm talking about we ought to speak with authority. In Matthew chapter 28, right in there in the last verses, Jesus said, "All authority has been given to me both in heaven and in earth. Now you go." He's delegated all that authority, and he said, now you have the right to talk like God because you have been given his authority. You are an ambassador of Christ, now talk like him. And that's what the church has not been doing. We've been talking about him, and that's why it doesn't produce any power, because it's not the way man was designed to work. He was not designed to talk about God. He was designed to talk like God. Words were given. This tongue was given not so we could just communicate. It was given so we could create. It's a creative force, man, this thing called faith. And this tongue is a spiritual tool. And it releases the glory of God that comes from the heart of a man. Not the blood pump, but the very center of his core, man. I mean, the core center of his being, man. Christ on the inside. So over here in John again, in chapter 14, verse 12, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, The works that I do shall he also do, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go to my Father. Now, how's he going to do the greater works? He can't unless he believes. Now we get into another principle called lordship, and the Lord told me that lordship is the principle that makes every other law in the kingdom work. And lordship is simply this. When, let's just put me in the equation here now, just for the sake of the example. If I'm saying something to you and you believe it, we have two ingredients there that have come together that make demand on a miracle to manifest. You have to have the preaching of the word of life, and you got to have somebody that believes it. Not just believes that, oh, I hear what you're saying. No, they believe what I'm saying as if it's the word of God. In other words, as if it's God sitting here talking to you. When you can believe the word as if it's God speaking to you, that means you believe words, man. You know words got potential and power to make the change. That's what's going to make the change. So that's the kind of work we're supposed to do. We just haven't had a clear idea of how to work that principle because we've never known it. We've only known go get up, get a job, get an education, get a better job, get more money, take care of your family, buy a nice house, go in debt, make sure you keep the job so you can pay the bill, get your debt, and do all that stuff. And then you just try to survive it. And when the kids get older, they have them go get a job and everybody just contributes to the house to do what? Just to pay the bills so you can keep water flowing because you need to drink. You can get food in there because you need to eat. You get all your security. You get all the comfortable things so you can survive. And all of that at the end of the day, at the end of your life, because it's going to lead to death, I guarantee you that. And you look back and go, what was all this for, man? Just work and toil just for the basic necessities of life. And then we want to say, well, praise the Lord, he gave me that job. No, he gave you a spirit and gave you his word, and he wanted you to use it to release his glory so all your needs would be met in the glory. See that? God supplies all you need according to his riches and glory, Philippians 4:19. But unfortunately, we think we're still sinners. And because we're sinners, we fall short of the glory. So, we just talk like mere men. Miss the whole concept. Jesus died to give you your authority back and give you your dominion back. And if we begin to sit on the throne, act like the king, we'll start talking like one. And then the principle of lordship begins to work. Now we begin to get the words in motion. And now they've got power. And now angels start moving on our behalf to see to it that the words of a king come to pass. I tell you what, if we could just somehow get the concept of this thing, we could run with it. Now let's go over there to Proverbs chapter 10. I want to make sure I got my notes up here. I want to make sure I give you the right scripture here. Proverbs chapter 10, let's take a look at verse 22. It says this, the blessing of the Lord maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow or no toil with it. Now, what's he saying here? The blessing of the Lord. Now, what is the blessing, or how do you minister the blessing of the Lord? How do you do that? How do we minister the blessing of the Lord? Well, let's go over here to Numbers chapter 6, and I'm going to show you what we have quoted for so long, ministers and preachers of the gospel, and we're going to look at here at Numbers chapter 6, verse 22, and we'll read to the end of the chapter. It said, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, on this wise you shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. Now God told Moses to tell Aaron to tell the people that when Aaron spoke and blessed them, that it was the Lord blessing them. Actually, Aaron was doing the talking, but Aaron was to tell them that in his talking, the Lord was blessing them. Meaning this, Aaron was talking, but the words were the power of God. They were the Lord They were the ones that were going to own their situation if the people believed them. So he said, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. Or you can put it this way, the word bless thee and keep thee. The word make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The word lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. You see, now the blessing is the word being spoken in the authority of the Lord. And once the Aaron and the priest would speak, the blessing, which is the word, would be applied to them, and they would be blessed. So when Proverbs 10:22 says, the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and it addeth no sorrow to it, he's saying that the words that you speak in the authority of Christ are the blessing, and it takes and removes the toil out of your life so that you no longer have to sweat and toil with the work of your hands for your provision. You'll find that all of it will be met in the blessing, which happens to be the anointing, the burden removing, yoke destroying power. It is the glory. It is the life of God. Where is it at? It's in the words, man. It's in the words that come out of the abundance of the heart, or out of the abundance of the life of Christ on the inside. See, we have to remove all of our religious connotations and get rid of all of these things that we have been taught all of our lives about what a good citizen is, and you need to be responsible, and moving us all towards walking by our five physical senses and trying to meet our needs with the work of our hands. I can't tell you how many pastors I've met in my life that had a full-time job as a pastor, but they also had a full-time job, working as a construction worker or a truck driver or working their own business or doing something else. Why? To help God, help them out to meet their needs so they feel responsible. And really it's because, well, they don't really know that the glory on the inside of them will take care of every situation that they face if they'll just learn to rely on the glory on the inside. We can't do it if we don't know it. God says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. They're ignorant. They don't know. We're ignorant kings. It's like we're a colony of ignorant kings. We don't know who we are. And we're bumping around people in the world system, and we're comparing ourselves with them. And we're comparing the way we're supposed to work with the way they work. And we just get right up subject under them, and we just take on their mindset, and we just come, and that's the way we work. We just going to get out there and we're working that 9-to-5 job out there with them too, just like they do. And we're supposed to be way above as far as in spiritual technology to tap into a culture of heaven where our needs are met. We're tapping into a whole nother government. But we don't know this, and that's the reason why we have to have these teachings. That's the reason why that we must hear about this, because faith comes by hearing. And we can't have faith to tap into the things of heaven if we're never hearing anything about it. So it's the mandate on my life to teach you these things, not because I'm a master of them, it's because I'm showing you what He's showing me, and we're all striving to get there, or at least the reason I'm telling us and saying all these things is so you can start striving. And we can come together in this thing, and then together we can manifest the glory of God and get the people out of that world system. This is not about just you and me now. It's about trying to get the world to where they can see the Father manifested through a Son. And 1 John 3 says that you and I now, he said, now we are sons of God. Beloved, now are we the sons of God. See, we are sons of God right now. And as sons of God, it means we're the offspring of God, and the offspring of God means the glory that's in the Father is in you, and that you're going to manifest it through the way you're designed to work, and that is through the spoken word. Faith comes by hearing the word. That means somebody's going to have to be speaking it. And that faith can move mountains in the person that believes what the other person's saying. So we've got to take a look at that and just know that it's a process that we have to discipline ourselves to walk in. And it's easy to do once you really understand who you are and what you're supposed to be doing in life, and that is manifesting the Father. So let's take a look at, make sure I go to 2 Timothy 2:15. I think that'll be fine. 2 Timothy 2:15. And it said this, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, all see that we just need to study the Bible and kind of learn what Paul did and learn his first, second, third missionary journey and how that Silas was with him and in how Peter and John and they were in the jail and we just need to learn all about that. Study the Bible, That's not what he's saying. He says study to show yourself approved. He's saying study yourself. Study yourself. In other words, study to find out who you are. Who are you? A workman. Well, what kind of work do you do? Well, the spiritual man on the inside works with spiritual tool called this tongue, and it releases spiritual things, a spiritual substance called faith, through spiritual things you can't see called words. And you study yourself long enough to know how you're to function as a spiritual man with a tongue, faith, through words. Why? So that you wouldn't be ashamed. What does that mean? It means that you can be clothed again. Remember, Adam lost the glory and then he was ashamed. He said if you can learn who you are, you can speak the glory right out of you and be covered again with his glory. Then this corruptible would turn to incorruptible, and this mortal would turn to immortality, and you could have the Son in you, manifested through you, like the cup that filled up and overflows, and the very glory of God will be upon your presence, as Isaiah chapter 60 talks about. I'm telling you, this only happens when you're working right. So as long as you're getting up and you're just going through a 9-to-5 job or working a night shift and you're just doing what everybody else is doing because of what you were told to do, your mom and dad told you, you better get up and work. You ain't going to sit around here on the couch all day long doing nothing, boy. Get up. Go get a job. Put in your application. You got to make some effort. God helps those that help themselves, No, truth is, if you can help yourself, you don't need God. It's when you realize you can't make it in this world doing what everybody else is doing because it just doesn't satisfy your spiritual man. And you say, God, I submit to you, your word, and yes, sir, I'll do exactly what you tell me to do. And I know you're going to confirm the word that I do with signs following. And when I do that, you're going to meet all my need according to your riches in glory. And Christ in me is the expectation of the glory of God. So everything I need already is in me. It goes with me. So this is really the concept of how you work. So I want you to be able to go through these verses that we talked about today, and we'll get more into this in part 3 of this series on how to work, how we're to function in this earth. And I hope you enjoyed this teaching. Join me again in part 3. Until we meet again, God bless you. Bye-bye.